Hi, I'm Peggy Farren. Welcome to the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. We are going to talk to Dan Beauvais today about New England fall foliage. But first, I want to make sure that you guys know that you can watch us live on Facebook at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Eastern Daylight Time now. Or you can watch the recording on YouTube or listen to us as a podcast on iTunes. So just do a search under the Understand Photography Show and you'll find us. Please subscribe, like, make comments, give us a good review. It all helps us and we like doing it. We want to keep doing it. We hope we're giving you a good service and you're learning from our show. Joe Fitzpatrick and I put together a guidebook called Florida Photo Spots, Naples and Collier County. So if you come down our way, be sure to get this book. It's available on Amazon as an ebook or as a softcover book. And we tell you all the great spots and what time to go and what's good for and things like that. It's a really good guidebook. We're quite proud of it. So you can find that on Amazon.com. And don't forget, we also have some online classes, and people really like our online classes. Now, the software classes, we've got Photoshop, Elements, and Lightroom, and several classes, okay? Our motto at Understand Photography is we simplify the technical. In the software classes, everyone loves the format because we do a little tiny short video to teach you one little tiny concept. You do that, you rewind, you watch it again, you do it, then you get it, and then you move to the next video. Then, you know, next year when you forgot how to do something, all you got to do is watch that little 3-minute video. You don't have to go scroll through the whole class to find out what you forgot. It's a really, really nice format, and anytime you get a software class with us, you have it for life. So my guest on the Understand Photography show today is Dan Beauvais. No way, Beauvais. That's
no way,
how you
Jose
remember.
Beauvais.
Oh, I forgot the Jose.
That's my friction-free mnemonic to help people understand how to pronounce my name.
I love that because it's B-E-A-U-V-A-I-S.
Yes, it took me till 3rd grade to learn how to spell it.
Yeah, it's tough. It says Beauvais. Mm-hmm. Very French.
Yes.
Very cool name. So we're going to talk today about capturing fall foliage, specifically in New England. You're originally from New England, right?
Yes, I grew up just north of Boston, about 30 miles north of Boston, city of Haverhill.
Okay.
And my family always went to New Hampshire for weekends, summers, and a little later in my life, I moved up to southern New Hampshire, but New Hampshire's pretty small. You can get up to the mountains, up to pretty fall foliage in an hour.
Okay.
So pretty accessible up there.
Now, how did you how did you get into, have you been a photographer for a long time? Or?
Yeah, I started 1980, so
Okay.
yeah, I guess it's a long time now.
It is.
When I was in college, went to a very, very depressing campus. I really hated the place, very Stalin-esque and not very pretty at all. But every year the yearbooks would come out, and the yearbook photographers would find little snippets of stuff for column fillers. And they would find these little snippets of beauty in this place I considered so ugly. Uh-huh. And borrowing from Kodak, I wanted to learn to see like they did.
That's
and
awesome.
that was what got me started.
And so you have just done it part-time for many years, right?
Yeah, I've
but
had
you, even though you're part-time, you turned it into a side business,
yes,
right?
indeed. Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly workshops, or?
I've done some workshops selling stock photography, selling in galleries. I do sensor cleaning, so a little bit of everything. And I'm about to retire. I've been in the IT industry for a little over 40 years and going to be retiring very soon, and turning up the photography and intend to pursue photo education offerings. So be turning that up, so watch this space coming up.
Awesome, that is exciting. You got a new career.
Yeah, indeed. It's a little scary, but I'm excited about the new possibilities in my life.
That's awesome, that's awesome. So, okay, so you're from New England. You don't live there now?
No, I spent my first 30 years in New England, and then next 30 has been in North Carolina. My job took me down to the Raleigh area. We lived there for about 13 years, and then went on vacation down in the Outer Banks, Barrier Islands off the coast of North Carolina, and the light was just incredible down there. Found a way to move down there, and I've lived there now for 18 years.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
It's
That's beautiful in the Outer Banks
It really
area,
is.
Right?
It's the photo opportunities abound, just everywhere you look.
That's awesome. All right, so let's go to New England.
Mhm,
Let's go to
indeed.
New England in the fall.
Indeed. Yeah, well, my specialty is more New Hampshire than anything. It's more where
right.
I'm most familiar with.
All right, let's talk about New Hampshire in the fall. So what's the best time of year to go? How do we know?
Well, it's always a guess.
Yeah, because
but
it changes every year,
It does.
right?
It changes every year, and unfortunately, you have to make your arrangements ahead of time. If you're going to plan first week of October, it's a target. And if you're there first week of October and the foliage isn't working, it hasn't arrived yet, you drive a little bit further north. If it's already passed, you drive a little bit further south.
Okay.
Also, changes in elevation are going to change what you see for foliage. So, you just have to be flexible enough to adjust for there. First week of October is the target for north central New Hampshire, Conway area, Kankamangas Highway, Route 302, that area up through Mount Washington.
Okay.
First week of October.
First week out, but you said that you have to make reservations early, right?
Yeah, you really do.
Because everybody else wants to get up there.
It's pretty crowded up there that week.
Is it all because, are they all photographers?
Leaf peepers, and not all photographers, but
What'd you say,
these days everybody's a photographer.
That's true.
Everybody's out there with their iPads taking photos. Yeah, everybody's a photographer these days.
So now,
only a few people serious.
Do you have a favorite spot in New Hampshire that you go to?
Well, a range, and you got to be flexible enough to move around. But there's kind of a triangle formed by some major roads through there. The main feature is what they call the Kankamangas Highway.
Now go slow.
Kankamangas, and then you can ask me to spell it. Kankamangus.
Oh my.
Something like that. Very close.
I'm glad you spelled it.
Yeah, it's a scenic road. It's State Route 112, but nobody knows it is State Route 112. Just ask for the Kank or the Kankamangas Highway.
Okay.
And it runs between North Conway, New Hampshire, and west out to Lincoln, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Crosses over the Eastern Continental Divide, so it's through the White Mountain National Forest. It is all White Mountain National Forest property.
White Mountain National Forest. Okay.
And probably 2/3 of it, you're climbing up to the divide, and along most of the way, the Swift River is off to the north side of the Kank, and just beautiful, beautiful cascades through there, covered bridges along there. Cool reflections, a lot of hardwoods, so you get a variety of colors. And in New England, the colors just all explode, bang, like that. Just everything just seems to turn at once.
Oh wow.
So you get just a riot of color. I live in North Carolina now, and we don't get much change in the coastal part, but if you go to the mountains of North Carolina, the color comes in waves as different trees turn.
Oh,
in New England, it
all happens
yeah,
at
Big
once.
Bang Theory type thing.
Now, do you have what town do you stay in when you go? Because you don't live there anymore,
I
so you
don't
have to
live
go
there.
and stay.
Well, my parents are still in New England,
Oh,
or
that works.
still in
You
New
got a
Hampshire
free
during the
place to
winter.
stay.
Except they're a little bit too far away. So what I'll do is I have a timeshare condo, and I'll usually trade time and get a place over in the North Conway, right in that area, Bartlett area. There's a bunch of properties there that I'm able to exchange for and stay there.
Okay.
So never actually had to go and bid for hotels,
But they have hotels in those
There's
areas.
a large variety of hotels, but
And Airbnbs probably now.
probably.
Yeah.
I never really looked into it, but yeah, I would imagine so.
Okay.
But first week of October, third week of September, no problem. Fourth week of September, it's starting to get crowded. First week of October, forget it.
How far, if I wanted to go, how far in advance would I have to get a
I would
get a hotel
certainly
room?
be in the market a year away.
A
Now,
year?
Yeah, but I'm guessing. I don't know because I
Like,
really never have had to
okay,
go
'cause
in that. But
But a
people
lot
go
of people
year
wanna
after year
go.
after year, and it's that popular. Yeah.
And what's so good about that spot? Okay, so you said there's a lot of waterfalls and there's a river, and is it mountainous or
It's
is
mountainous, yep.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a lot of hiking trails, some of them short, just up to further waterfalls, some long, strenuous, and you have to figure out by how much time you have available, how far you want to go hiking into the woods, because you could drive to something 3 miles up. There's more good stuff to photograph.
Okay.
So if you're only there, 4 days or even a week, you might want to consider how much you really want to hike, because there's a lot of easier stuff to get to.
Okay.
If you're going to be there longer, or if you've really worn out the areas by going year after year, then maybe you want to start taking some of the longer hikes in.
Okay.
And-
No, I've been in Florida most of my life, which is flat.
It's flat.
So, when I think about the woods, how do you get to a vantage point if it's all wooded?
Follow the trail.
You just follow a trail, and
there'll be trailheads out on the
you just have to
road.
wait until you're at the top of a hill or mountain or something, or aren't there going to be trees in your way to take a picture?
Usually there's these hikes are either to a mountain peak, the peak of a mountain, or into some landmark, some scenic, like a spectacular fall or something like
Okay.
that. And depends upon how popular it is. It's oftentimes cleared out enough that there's plenty to do, plenty of room for people to shoot. And it's not always one angle. Okay, a lot of places everybody jumps up, takes the photo from the same angle, but anybody that's spent any time in photography knows you got to go work an area. You don't just jump out of the car, take a photo, and jump back in the car and move on. Get out and sit and look around, spend an hour, spend 2 hours, spend an afternoon. If you get stuck, find a rock, sit for a minute, shut off your mind, and just look. And within 5 minutes, new angles will appear for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I find a beginner's mistake, and something I have to fight, is that I want to go drive to the next scene, get to the next scene, and I find that if I slow down and give the area time to speak to me,
That's good advice.
you spend a lot less time on the road and a lot more time photographing.
That's a good advice, because I have that same problem. I get bored easily, so I want to move.
Yeah. Well,
But when you do stay still, because I'm a working photographer, and even though I'm not photographing fun things usually, it's event photography and things like that, but sometimes I'm stuck. Like at one time the governor's wife was reading to children.
Okay.
And I wasn't allowed to take pictures of the children's faces.
Boy, that limits your
And I was there for
ankles, doesn't
3
it?
hours.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, holy moly. But what happened was I started getting more and more creative. I was shooting through bookshelves, and I was shooting through the kids raising their hands. And
There you go.
so boredom sometimes helps your creativity
There you
as
go.
well. So
There you
I
go.
think that's really good advice, to just sit there quietly, and maybe you'll see something will jump out at you, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, I should have done that. Or maybe walking around the scene a little bit.
Yeah,
or-
absolutely.
So
Take out your sandwich and sit at the picnic table and eat your lunch, and new ideas come to you.
So now let's say you're going to go and you want to shoot the fall foliage. What would be a typical day? Do you get up before sunrise?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And not back until after sunset, and shoot throughout the day.
Okay.
If you limit yourself to shooting just a particular time of day, what are you doing the rest of the time? There's good photos out there to be made. So instead, when the light when the sun still first rises, it's real cool. You get the light on top of peaks near you, but as the light rises up, now it's time to start shooting through the leaves and so on. Look for reflections in river, especially. What's really nice, between 10 and 2 o'clock, the sun will be up high enough. If you can get to a shaded bank of a river, color on the other side, rocks in the river, the other side of the river will be reflecting into the water. You're in the shade, and all you just get is abstracts of colors as the water swirls through the rocks.
Oh, wow.
And that's a long telephoto shot. People think of fall foliage, you probably want to use a wide angle because they're taking whole mountain vistas.
Right.
Take a 600 millimeter and
Seriously?
Oh yeah, and just zoom in on the water swirling around a rock. And it changes by the second because the water, different angles all the time, and it just picks up different things to reflect. And you'll get the reds and the greens of the leaves. You'll get some blue from the sky above, and it's just beautiful. And you can find one ripple and photograph that for an hour, easy.
What
if you just
what
slow
else
down.
do you photograph between 10 and 2? Now, let me ask you this, though. In my mind, I'm just trying to picture this, because I have never, okay, if you watch my show very much, I don't like to be cold.
Okay.
So I'm
Layering.
never going to go to New England in the fall, because it's pretty cold, right?
Can be 80. Last year I was up there for 2 weeks, and most of the time it was in the 70s.
Maybe, you never know. You never say never. But anyway, so.
Long johns are your friend, though. And
Don't like to be cold.
you grew up, Detroit area, you said?
Yeah,
So
I grew up-
you have some experience with it, but just layering.
So I know I don't like it.
Yeah, be able to, add or strip off layers. Just adjust.
But in the middle, okay, so I'm going to go back to taking pictures in the middle of the day because we're always taught, oh, you have to do the golden hour early in the morning or sunset. But I'm thinking that the colors might be more vibrant in the middle of the day, or are they more washed out in the middle of the day?
You can polarize them, use a polarizer and take off a lot of that washout. Everybody thinks of a polarizer for darkening skies, but it's just great for taking glare off leaves.
Okay.
And fall foliage especially is just, the colors will appear muted because of reflecting scattered light off the leaves. Put a polarizer on them, and it just richens up all the colors. And by all means, when you're out there, polarize like crazy.
Do you use a polarizer in the golden hour too?
I don't have any hard and fast rules. I will try, see what it does.
Okay.
And try it. You don't have to put it on the lens. You just have to hold it up to your eye and twist it.
And see if it makes a difference. Because it doesn't make a big difference that time of day usually, does it?
If you're at 90 degrees away from the sun, it makes a huge difference.
Might, okay.
Yep. You don't have to, if the sun is behind you, you don't have, the only photo is not straight ahead. There are other photos off to the side. You go 90 degrees, it works just as well as at midday.
Okay.
90 degrees away from the sun, it just diminishes as you get to 180 or 0 degrees.
So what other things can you tell me about taking pictures in the middle of the day?
Get under a canopy and look up. You'll just find the leaves are all backlit and just glow. They're electric. And
here you're talking the zoom lens again, a big long lens again?
I like a long lens because I pretty much like intimate scenes rather than big splashes, just kind of the way I think.
Okay.
So I will go and find one or two of a grouping of leaves and against another background, a color behind it. But if I can get in, even find the edge of a maple leaf and just get that edge in focus with color, and then a splash of color behind it. Or get the edge against a brilliant blue sky.
Okay.
The skies, and further north you get, the darker the skies, and they can get pretty dramatic up there. Throw a polarizer on it, and it even pops it more.
You mean when you say darker, you mean like a bluer?
Yes, more intense, more saturated blue.
Really, and that's from being farther north?
Yes, that's my experience.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Ah.
I learned that when I moved to North Carolina, and how I learned what Carolina blue is, which is boring blue. It's
really?
not the intense blue that
you get way up there.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Overcast days, that's a great time for shooting straight onto the leaves. Polarize them again. Polarize would work great on a overcast day.
Now, for those who don't know much about a polarizing filter, which they also call a CPL, right?
Mm-hmm. Circular polarizing. That's what
polarizing
CPL
lens
stands for.
And basically, you put it on the front of your lens, and you just turn it, and what happens?
As you turn it, you'll see either the colors will intensify or diminish. If they're diminishing, just keep turning. When you reach 90-degree point, it'll get to maximum saturation in the colors. So I always turn it if I've got a polarizer on the front of my camera. From my perspective, I will turn it counterclockwise, which will keep you from unthreading it from the lens, because a polarizer has a fixed threaded part that attaches to your lens, and then the part that rotates. If you grab the wrong part and you twist it the wrong way, you can unthread it from your lens. But if you always turn it counterclockwise from your position behind the lens, it'll only tighten it on the lens.
That's good advice.
Yeah, because they're expensive when you drop them. They don't like rocks very much.
Now, okay, so just turning it, you're gonna actually, you can see before you take a picture, you're gonna see the picture change.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you don't even have to have the lens on the camera. If you want to see if it works, hold it up in front of your eye, look at the scene, and just turn it.
Okay.
If it's not doing anything, don't even bother attaching it to your lens. It's just stealing your light, because you lose 1 2/3 stops of light going through a polarizer. But if it's working and it saturates your colors, yeah, go for it. You gotta be careful with a polarizer on a wide-angle lens, though, because if they have maximum intensity when you're 90 degrees away from the sun. But if you have a wide angle looking out this far, you could have 90 degrees here, you could have 0 degrees here. Your sky and your leaves will be real dark. At 90 degrees over here, it has no effect, and your picture's really going to look funny.
Ah, I didn't know that either.
If that's happening, take the polarizer off, because that's miserable to try to fix in Photoshop.
Do you have like a range of sizes that you would not go bigger than? Like a wide lens, like?
try it and see. Try it and see.
But you'll be able to see it.
You can actually see it. Now everybody that's seen this podcast, this video cast, is aware, and they know to look for it.
Yeah.
Most people that's probably watching this know this already. But
And one other thing about a polarizing lens is the cheap ones aren't as good. Or do you have an opinion on that?
We're getting a lot of stuff from markets that we never had access to in the previous years. So, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I'd say, yes, stick to one of the name brands, get yourself a B&W or something like that. Now, a lot of the New World markets are coming up and making some decent gear.
Okay.
I know I just talked to Alan at Hunt's Photo, and I needed a 105 millimeter polarizer for a big lens that I have, and he told me, yeah, okay, I could set you up with a B&H for $600.
$600 for one?
I don't remember. That was some ridiculous. It probably wasn't far off from that. And he says, we've got these new ones by a company, ProMaster, and he says, let me tell you, Dan, instead of aluminum rings or brass rings so they don't bind up on you, he said the insides of the filter ring are coated to prevent reflections. He says there's shot glass, SCHOTT, which is some magic glass. Whatever. It's the better manufacturers all brag about their shot glass, and this ProMaster has shot glass. And he said, try it out, and if you don't like it, send it back to me. And instead of like a $600 filter, it was about $200, and I love it. It's great.
Wow.
It's great. So, things are opening up. We now are in a time when New World economy is working to our benefit as photographers. You just either have to be willing to curate that yourself or use the experts. Somebody you really trust, like Alan, Gary, and Hunt's are really, really good. They'll stock stuff that they know works, and they won't sell you garbage. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That's
really good advice.
We started talking about the areas I mentioned.
I know. I got all distracted into the CPL.
That's okay. There's kind of a triangle of roads. So the Kankamangas Highway is an east-west road, very windy, hilly. You can spend all day driving across that if you stop and enjoy it.
How do you know where to stop?
So you see something in front of you, and they have pull-offs that with lots and lots of parking, where they've cleared areas that are particularly good. One of my favorite places is Lower Gorge recreational area on the Kankamangas, and you could easily I can spend all day just at Lower Gorge.
Okay.
So Lower Falls, Lower Falls.
Lower Falls. Okay.
But anyway, go across the Kank to the west into Lincoln, and then you can take Route 302 north. That brings you up through Franconia Notch State Park, and there's one really spectacular place in there called the Basin. And a river has come down, wound around some rocks, and just with whatever rock formation was there, a lot of the rock wore out, and it made this 20-foot wide, probably 10-foot deep hole. That water comes down this spiral slide, swirls around in there, and then out. And it's just an incredible place to photograph.
And what time of day is the best time of day to go there?
My favorite time to go is after everybody leaves, so when it's getting dark, because you can't get an angle when there's a lot of crowd around there, and it's a wide angle shot.
Spot.
It's a wide angle shot. So I go there as it's getting dark, set up a tripod, wait until everybody leaves, and then I'm shooting couple of minute exposures when you swear it's too dark to shoot in there, and just let the exposure collect up the light, and you get some incredible stuff. And it's a good time to do some light painting with a flashlight and stuff like that, and add in some highlights where you want it and so on.
That's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of these places you just have to wait until the crowd thins out, be willing to shoot in available darkness, and then hike out by headlamp. That's how you avoid some of the crowds.
What about wildlife? Are there scary things that'll
there
get
are
you?
a lot of chipmunks. They're little.
Chipmunks won't get you, will they?
There's wildlife out there. Frankly,
are the bears going to eat you alive or anything?
I suppose they could. I've never seen one out there.
Never saw. What about the mosquitoes?
Those are dangerous ones. Yes, they will eat you alive.
Are they still pretty bad in October?
It really depends. last year I was out there, like I say, the weather stayed in the 70s. Yeah, they were pretty bad then.
Do you wear bug jackets and stuff like that? Or do you even know about them?
That's
something that we have down here. We have bug jackets and nets over our faces.
Well, I go so far. I do have a net that I can wear over my hat and tuck into my shirt. I have it. I use it more down the Outer Banks because when you go out at night shooting Milky Way stuff and you're standing in wet, soggy land, then you get eaten alive. I've never used one up there. Just primarily use bug spray and put up with it.
And it's enough. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm usually wearing a long sleeve shirt, I'm wearing jeans.
Right, because it's cold.
Boots. Or even at 70, you want that. So I like wearing long pants because I want to get down to my knees a lot. I don't want my pretty little knees to get. It's just more protective.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can go up 302 through Franconia and Notch. So that'll bring you up to the area around Mount Wash. I'm sorry, I said 302. You're going up Route 3, which is where Franconia area is. And then from there you take 302 and that'll bring you back towards Conway. So it's like a triangle. But that'll bring you all along the Mount Washington area, Mount Washington being the highest peak in North Carolina, second highest peak in the East Coast, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And up until recently, they had the world's record for highest wind, 234 miles an hour on top of Mount Washington.
That would be tough to photograph in that wind, though.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough, I would think. Unfortunately, not every day
is
like that.
Is it always windy?
It's generally always pretty windy, pretty intense weather up there. Changes rapidly. But they have three ways to get up there. You can hike up there.
Okay.
If you're going to go for a week to do photography, I don't recommend you hike up Mount Washington because that's going to take you a very, very, very long day or probably two.
Okay.
You can take a cog railway, the Mount Washington Cog Railway, and it's a railway that they built where they propel the engines by cogs, like a big gear in the middle of the track, which pulls the engine up. Trouble is, if you do,
cool.
That does sound kind of cool. And in places, you're in an angle like this, climbing up this mountain on this railway.
Could you just do that? Do a lot of people just do that for sightseeing? Not even. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
I don't recommend it for photographers because if you do that, you have to catch the next train down in an hour. And that's just a tease. My favorite way is to, on Route 16 up past Bartlett, you can catch the Mount Washington Auto Road. It's admission. I think it's like $27 or something for a car, and then an additional amount for each additional passenger. But for $27, a single photographer can go up there, take all the time you want in the world to drive up, and like around every twist, just another breathtaking scene. After a while, you break above the tree line, and you get into a place where it's just nothing but these little lichens that grow on the rocks.
Okay.
And just fascinating to see those. That and I forgot, there's another variety, I've forgotten what grows there. But you're definitely being hit by the wind then. And up at the top, they have an observatory up there, a restaurant, you can get something to eat. And so on. So it is fairly civil, get out of the wind, but then you can get up on top of that building and look out, and you can, on a clear day, you can see out to the Atlantic from there, which is probably about 90 miles away.
Oh my gosh, that's
But there are a few clear days. But it's always interesting to see, even on a foggy day. I get a favorite photo. It's just a conductor for the Mount Washington Railway guiding a train in on the track, and the fog was so thick, the train just fades off into the fog. It's just a cool photo.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's fun to drive up. I enjoy that. If you don't like looking down over cliffs, you probably don't want to drive up. You can also hire a motor coach and ride like a big Chevy Suburban small bus type thing. And they'll bring you up there if you don't want to drive it yourself.
Yeah, I'm scared of heights too. I don't like to be cold. I'm scared of heights. I'm a big baby.
You do really well in Florida.
I know. I love Florida. I was meant to be in Florida, except I don't have the right skin. So, all right. So, you're making this sound so exciting. Now, do you lead workshops in this area?
Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Yes. I'm not yet where I'm just finishing my full-time job. I'm about to retire.
You're not retiring. You're moving to the next chapter.
I'm moving to the next chapter of my life. Yes, I intend to start doing workshops. I'm not ready business-wise to do that. I just want to make sure that when I start offering this to folks, that I can give them good, safe, well-managed, well thought out package that I just have not had
Well, it
the
sounds like-
cycles to put in. I can
Sounds
guide
like you
somebody
know
to
the
do-
area pretty well.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
know,
even talking about photographing the lichens on the rocks, I mean, come on. That's pretty,
I
pretty
suppose you're
deep
right there.
knowledge, you know,
Yeah.
of the area.
But I just want to make sure before I offer a package that I
Right,
have
right.
all of my ducks in a row so I can
Because
offer
I want to
people
go,
a good
if
value.
I go, I'm going with you.
Well, thanks. It was kind of interesting. I said my folks went up there. When I was growing up, we'd go up weekends. My folks actually had a cabin up on a lake, not too far from the mountains. And I was one of 6 kids, and my folks were working class. And there wasn't a heck of a lot of money left. As a matter of fact, I remember them collecting change to try to save up enough to pay for the campground every year where this cabin was. We all just contribute our pennies and then count them up, roll them up to pay for it. So there wasn't a lot of money left around, and my folks were very, very good at finding free things to entertain us.
Okay.
So we'd go up and drive the Kangamangas, because at the time it was free. Now they charge you $3 a day to park on the Kangamangas. Yeah, no big deal. But it was free, so we got to know those spots really, really well.
Okay.
And then I've gone up past several years with photographer, found some more spots, and as I've gone up, I've started hiking some of the things that we always considered just too long to bring the whole family when you're out for a day trip.
Right.
Finding new stuff there. Whether you want to bring workshop participants up there, it's kind of hard to ask somebody to go and hike in 2 hours and 2 hours back
Right.
to get shots. It's probably better to stick to the things where there's plenty of picturesque stuff that's right roadside.
Now, what about, let me go back to the wind. So if you're up there at the top of the mountain, how do you take pictures in a windy environment like that?
Tripod.
And let's talk about a tripod a little bit, because you did a whole workshop on tripod
did,
at
I
the
did.
Florida Camera Club Council Convention.
That's right, I did.
Okay, so let's talk about tripods a little bit, because see these little cheap tripods that I have these little small cameras on?
Yeah.
Most of those people just give me those. They buy a cheap tripod and then they realize that it doesn't work. And so they're
Okay.
like, here, you want this? And I'm like, okay, I'll leave it. I'll use them with light stands.
And that's what they're good for.
Yeah.
Because they're not good out in the field for photography. They get frustrating. People get frustrated and they leave them home. What good is a tripod that you leave home? There's a very controversial article that's been on the web, been out there for 20, 25 years, something like that, written by a guy named Tom Hogan. It's about selecting a tripod. And if you
Okay.
look for Tom Hogan tripod, you'll find it.
Okay.
And Tom wrote the article and made a lot of references to model numbers, and that throws people, because once you put a model number in an article, it's obsolete in a week because stuff changes too quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's updated a couple of times, put in new model numbers, but still falls into the same trap. But if you get past that and listen to the advice, it's every bit as applicable as when he wrote it 25 years ago, however long it was. And his advice is, you start with a $35 tripod, move to a $100 tripod, move to a $200 tripod, and you eventually just throw those away, and you just keep upgrading until you finally get a good tripod. And in his example, he summed that up and he said, you just bought $700 worth of tripods that you're not going to use. He says, instead, why don't you just go buy your last tripod first and save $700? And at the time he wrote it, we only had our old world economy stuff available. So if you went and bought a Gitzo or Really Right Stuff tripod, and you get one that's right size for you, rugged, and a good head on it, it's pretty easy to spend $1,500.
Right.
And that scares a lot of people. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
We now have a lot of companies that have come in from non-traditional markets, and they're producing some very, very good stuff. And a place like a good photo shop that's personal service, such as Hunt's, will help you curate that stuff and will help you make some good selections there. Or you go on Amazon and you'll find that stuff offered and try it out on Amazon. Amazon has a very generous return policy. Try it out. If you don't like it, then return it. So it's almost as good as having the hands-on in a Photoshop, like back when we had Photoshops in every town. So there's very, very good manufacturers. I've had incredible luck with the Chinese company Enduro, and they're represented by a reputable company in the U.S., the Mac Group, that represent Elinchrom and Seconic meters and Ilford films and stuff like that. They represent a lot of top name stuff, and they've taken on this Enduro, and they can INDURO. But that's only one example.
Okay.
I just had some good luck with that. There's plenty of other good manufacturers coming in.
All right, so what do I choose in a tripod? Now, the biggest problem that most people are going to say is it's going to be too heavy.
Choose carbon fiber if you can afford it, because it'll be lighter. But by the time you put a good head on top of a tripod, there's not a heck of a lot of difference in that weight between aluminum and carbon fiber. The reason I recommend carbon fiber, it's not so much for the weight, but for resonance. If wind blows beside an aluminum tripod, it shakes like a guitar string. It vibrates.
That doesn't help you.
That doesn't help you at all. Where carbon fiber damps out vibrations like wood. So if somebody bumps it, it'll stop shaking immediately. Wind blows, it'll stop shaking immediately.
Okay.
And then
so carbon fiber legs would be the best.
Yep.
They're not the best legs, though, or they are the best legs.
For my money, they are.
They are, okay.
You know, there's wood, there's aluminum, there's basalt, some exotic metal Gitzo likes to use, and carbon fiber.
Okay.
And carbon fiber is the go-to choice at this point. Yeah.
What kind of head do you use?
For smaller lenses, I'll use a good ball head. And once again, New World Economy has put some excellent choices in there. You know, 10 years ago, if you wanted a good ball head, you got a Kirk or you got a Really Right Stuff. Now there are lots of good ones. Enduro makes good ones. Benro has some beautiful heads, very affordable. There's a lot of manufacturers. I don't want to recommend any one brand because this could change day to day. New manufacturer appearing, but you know, a good camera store will help you curate that stuff, or read the reviews, try it out, you know, and return it from mail order place.
So what about for if you're a birder and you got a big long
lens? Then absolutely go with a gimbal. Go with a gimbal head. And once again, new world manufacturers are moving in gimbal heads. The industry standard was by a company called Wimberley. That was $600. Has been $600 forever. And now you can buy gimbal heads fully serviceable for $150.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that. I don't have one. Now's the time to get one, huh?
You might want to look into it, but weight's an issue. Gimbals are heavy. The better ones, now you can spend $750 or $1,000 and they'll make them out of magnesium and drill them out to be extra lightweight, but you pay for that. Or you can keep something that's heavier but fully serviceable. And yeah, that's the way I go. I only use an expensive one. I bought one on off eBay probably about 8 years ago. It was from a vendor in India, no-name vendor. Wasn't pretty to look at, but all the important surfaces were polished. And I said, you know, I'd try this out, and if it didn't work, I paid $211 for it 8 years ago. I said, if it doesn't work, I'll put it back on eBay for $100 and get half my money back. I've never had to do that. It's still working just fine. Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you're going to be using a gimbal with a long lens, you don't lock down the tripod. Instead, take your left arm, lay it out over your lens, hand on top of the lens, and you damp down vibrations. Release with your right hand, not a cable release. Just that combination on a long lens on a gimbal is very stabilizing. And then never rely on one photo. You know, digital, you know, back when we shot film, it cost us $0.25 every time we click the shutter.
Right.
Digital, it's free. You already paid for it, you know, so.
Time, but.
time and disk space. Disk is cheap, time's not cheap. Disk is ridiculous.
But I agree with you. Never take just one shot.
Never take just one. You know, if you take one, if you took the time to take one shot, take 40. You know, get your insurance. One of those could be sharper.
Insurance.
Yeah, and then I find.
You're right, because sometimes you don't know. I have a picture that I really liked it. I took it in Cuba, and I did take several, but of course I made the same mistake on every single picture because it was a dog laying like on a step, and when I got it, I didn't even notice until after I had it printed that I actually was focusing on the step, not the dog.
Oh no.
So it wasn't as, now nobody in the world is going to notice that but me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't focusing on the dog all that time, I thought. But every single, so I went back and they were all the same.
Oh no. Yeah, you might want to just check the insurance shots every now and then, make sure it's what you get, what you think you're getting.
Yeah.
And then I also use fast burst mode all the time. And if I don't take just one photo, I will take a minimum of tat, group of 3. And the first one, you're pressing the shutter release. That's probably got shake in it. The last one, you're releasing the shutter release. That's probably got shake in it. That middle one's going to be the sharp one.
Ah, so using continuous drive mode, basically,
Yep.
burst or
Burst mode,
AFC or what is
Oh, well, the AF refers to the autofocus help.
or no, yeah, what am I thinking of? It's on Nikon, what do they say? What do they call it?
Shutter, single, shutter
We call
low,
it
shutter high.
continuous drive mode on a Canon, I
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
But
It
on
means the same thing.
Nikons, do they call it burst? Why can't I think of this? It might be the same.
They have S for, if I remember, S for single shot, continuous L, lowercase l, continuous lowercase h for
you're
low and high
right.
speed.
Okay, you're right.
So I will go in continuous high.
What kind of camera do you shoot with?
I shoot with a variety of Nikons, but you know
Nikons.
what? It doesn't matter. You pick one, you stick in that system. One system will leapfrog the other for
I
2
agree.
months, and then the next one will catch up. Do not shift systems unless you have a very, very good reason. I haven't heard a good
Or a
reason
big,
yet.
big bank account.
Or big, yeah, you got a rich daddy paying your stuff, okay, if you want to do it, but pick a system and stick with it. Nobody has a huge advantage for very long.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I know for a while, because I started off as a Canon shooter, and then all the Nikon guys are like, "Oh, Canon's better," and they started switching over, and then all of a sudden, "Oh, Nikon's better," and it's like, "Oh my God, just stick." How can you afford to change because of the lenses?
Exactly
Once
right.
you have thousands and thousands of dollars invested in lenses, it's like, and
Well,
all the other
there's kind of a new
paraphernalia.
development in that too. Sigma, I know, on some of their top-end lenses, has a lens mount conversion option. So if you if you wanted to switch over, come over to my side, you had a bag full of Sigma lenses, they could convert it from your Canon mount to a Nikon mount. I don't know what they charge for it, I just know it's available.
Wow.
So, but still, pick a system and stick with it.
Now, do you have any other advice for photographing the fall foliage? You know, making the colors, lenses, settings.
Post-processing definitely is a factor, at least in my work. I'm never happy straight out of camera. I will go and always do post-processing, usually do contrast adjustments. I will almost always add a little bit of clarity. Almost everything I do will also go into NIC filters. I've become quite a fan of them in Color Effects Pro. Some of their contrast tools in there are really just lovely. They look great when you bring them in there, and then you start tweaking a little more, and it just punches even a bit more.
Now, can you still get the NIC filters?
Yes, they're still available for free.
So you just go to Google.
Well,
Do you
Google
know?
will now direct you to DxO. DxO bought out Google's share interest in it, and DxO is going to make it into a new product. But in the meantime, it's still available for free.
So how do you find it for free?
Just
What's
search for
DxO?
DxO is the name of the company that bought it.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, just search for NIC filters and you'll find it. Do a Google
NIC
search.
is N-I-K.
N-I-K. NIC filters. They're available for free. You can't beat the price.
So
It's
pretty
just-
much you should, now that another company bought, you ought to get them now
Yep.
before they start charging again.
Well, yeah.
Because
yeah.
I know the first time I bought NIC filters was a long, long, long time ago, but I paid $300 for them.
Was that for the entire set?
Uh-huh.
I was at the point where I paid $150 for each filter, and I think I did that 3 times. And
They were expensive.
Yeah, and then they said, okay, you spent enough money, we're going to go and give you the whole kit. And then shortly after that, Google bought them out, and I guess it was Google that said, okay, we'll sell you the whole kit, all 7 filters that they have available for $150. And Google said, yeah, just take the whole thing, you paid enough. And then they went and made it free. And
Yeah, because they didn't want to upgrade it. They didn't want to, or
and
not
they haven't
upgrade.
upgraded it at all.
Upgrade,
but it
but
still works. Still
I
works for the
agree.
latest
It's
version of
it's
Lightroom and Photoshop. And they also work standalone. You can just take a JPEG and drag it into the filters and operate on it standalone. You don't have to have anything in front of it.
That's cool.
But I'll do that. I'll do a little bit of enhancing. That's not the word. Enhancing it. Something that. Darn it, I forgot the name of the filter, but it increases texture and it enhances the texture.
Oh, okay.
And just use a touch of that. You can easily get carried away with that. Use that. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of glamour glow, especially in fall foliage. A touch of that.
Really?
Yeah. It'll soften things up. Boy, the color is just take on this incredible, lovely glow. And I'll use the edge enhancement and the glamour glow to kind of cancel each other, but get the glow still.
Okay.
I love NYX.
Now the glamour glow is an action though, right?
No, it's not an action. It's actually a filter.
That's a filter of some sort.
And trick is use enough of it that people can't say, "Oh, you use glamour glow." If it starts showing, back off just a little bit.
That's something that I interviewed Parrish Cohanum and he said that same thing. I don't like to use the filters because then people go, "Oh, you used that? I recognize that filter."
Yeah, just back off a little bit, unless you're actually looking to make a statement. Sometimes I'll use a filter that I'm deliberately trying to make a statement. Most stuff, I use HDR an awful lot, high dynamic range, take multiple photos at various exposures, then mathematically munge them together in an HDR, high dynamic range program. I use that a lot, and I use it a lot for fall foliage.
Okay, so
I use it a lot in I try to keep it to a delicate touch so it's not real obvious that I'm using it, but it'll allow you to capture the brightest highlights and the darkest shadows in the same
So let's back up
image.
in case somebody doesn't know what HDR photography is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually on site with your tripod.
I am.
You frame the picture, and then what?
I'll take a single shot and check the histogram.
Okay.
And you don't want anything pressing against the left goalpost or the right goalpost, the left goalpost on a histogram. And oftentimes, outdoor scenics, there's such a range of brightness, you cannot get all the range of
Right, because inside the trees is going to be dark, but then you got the sky, and that's going to be real bright.
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So what I will do is I will shoot a stop apart. I'll take multiple exposures, one stop apart. I'll make sure the brightest one, all the tones are inside the left side of the histogram.
Okay.
The darkest one, I make sure all the brightest tones are inside the right side of the histogram without touching the end post.
Okay.
Then I know I have enough images. If you're still touching the edge, there's no magic formula. Always shoot 3, always shoot 5. There's no magic formula. You have to check the histogram.
The magic formula is to make sure nothing's crawling up either side of the histogram.
Right. And just shoot one stop away, further exposures until you have everything in.
And you change your shutter speed when you do that.
Yes, you don't want to change your aperture because that'll change the depth of field. That gets real
Right.
obvious. Yes, you can change the shutter speed. There's another way to do it. Everybody thinks of changing aperture and changing shutter speed. There are 3 variables in exposure.
Right.
Everybody forgets about ISO. You can also bracket your ISO instead. So my typical shooting mode now, and I love this, people didn't like this before, and things have changed recently, but I will shoot in full manual with automatic ISO.
Okay.
People used to sit on ISO, keep it as low as possible, down to the 100, because as you increased ISO, noise increased.
Right.
Past 5 years or so, cameras have gotten so good that high ISO noise is getting to be a non-factor.
Yeah.
So much so that shutter speed mattered much more to me than the ISO. So more often than not, I'll shoot in auto ISO. If I'm shooting something static, fall foliage, I might just go and try to keep my quality low. She was a very low ISO, like a 100, and let my shutter speed vary. But oftentimes I'm out shooting wildlife around my home. There's a great wildlife park. Go out there and you drive, and the animals don't wait for you. You have to be ready to take it. Here in Florida, birds will let you photograph them forever. In North Carolina, you slow down the car, they're gone. So you have to be prepared to do drive-by shootings.
Drive-by shootings.
That's right. So you pick your aperture, pick your shutter speed, and let ISO fall where it may.
That's good advice.
And it's great. So, when you do HDR bracketing, most people think change the shutter speed, but why not change the ISO?
I've never thought to change the ISO.
Yep.
I'm going to do it now.
Okay. There is some limitation. Some cameras, if you do auto ISO, full manual auto ISO, they will not let you dial in exposure compensation.
Okay.
For instance, Canons didn't let you do that in the 5 series until you got to the Mark IV.
Oh, I see.
Nikon has let you do that for some time, some slight advantage there with Nikon. So it's
You
very,
can just
very
change
viable.
it manually if
You can
wanted.
change it manually.
Yeah.
But I'll dial in exposure compensation with the plus and minus.
Do you shoot manually? You don't program your computer automatically to take the 3-4 shots? That's what a lot of people do.
If I'm in a scene where I recognize I'll need to bracket, I'll use the auto bracketing. So I'll dial in. I'll make my best guess. I'll say I think this is a 5-stop bracket. But then I'll go and check my histogram to make sure it's wide enough and then make adjustments from there, and I'll shoot another bracket series.
And how do you do that with the ISO? I got to think of that through. So if you put it on automatic bracketing, so usually I shoot an aperture priority so it would change the shutter speed.
Yep.
So if I want to change the aperture, I would shoot in
And put it in manual.
I mean, change the ISO. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You put it in manual.
Put it in manual, but auto
you do the
ISO.
auto bracketing.
Auto bracketing and auto
With
ISO.
auto ISO, and then it will just change the ISO. Ah, I'm going to try. I've never tried that.
Yep.
Ah, okay. So what HDR? I'm just going to summarize that. What HDR photography does is you take a picture of however many pictures of the dark. You expose your camera for the darkest part, so that it will come out okay.
Right.
And the lightest part, so it will come out okay, like the sky. You want the sky to be blue, and you want the dark shadows to be not too dark.
Right.
And then you do some mid-tone exposures.
Right.
And
Generally,
then
general wisdom is 1 stop apart. Don't go any more than 2 stops apart, or else the programs will fall apart. They don't have enough data to work with.
and then you put all those pictures into a software program, and it blends it together, and it just finds the right, so that it looks more like what your eye sees.
Absolutely.
Because your eye can
our
see.
brain is an HDR machine. Our eye
Yeah.
cannot see that, but we put it together in our brain. We go and look into the shadows and remember how that looks. We look at the highlights, and our brain puts those together and we see the whole scene. Our eyes can't see it. We don't have enough dynamic range in our eyes, but our brain compensates for it.
So HDR photography is a really good advice when you're doing this type of landscape photography.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yep.
Well, do you have a favorite program to merge the HDR photos?
Frankly, I use 2 different ones, and I'll try both and see which one I like best. But Nik, in the free Nik tools, is a great HDR program. One of the 7 filters is a Nik HDR, HDR Pro, something like
I
that.
think that's what it is.
Yep, I'll use that, and I also use Photomatic's HDR, which that costs like $125 or something like that. And there are other good ones out there, but after a while, you get into law of diminishing returns. How many more tools? How many hammers can one person use?
I know. Do you ever use the HDR in Photoshop?
I tried it, and it does a very nice job. But what both Nik and Photomatic do is, after it does the blend, it shows you a whole bunch of presets for filters or tweaks that you can make, and that's a very easy way to start dialing it in. You go find a preset that kind of looks like what you want, and then you only have to do minor tweaks. When you do the HDR in Adobe, there are no presets.
Yeah.
You're kind of on your own, and I just find it a little more convenient to start from a preset and tweak from there.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you. It's really nice. Although I have to admit, most of my HDR stuff I do in Lightroom now, because I don't have to come out of Lightroom. I just But most of the HDR stuff that I'm doing is for a commercial job, and I just need it to look like a real picture. I don't want to, it's nothing fancy, you know what I mean?
And I consider myself more a photo artist than a photographer, because I feel no obligation to make everything look
like it should.
real.
Like it
And
real.
I
Yeah,
kind
real.
of
That's a good word.
hate that, because a photo doesn't look real, because when we took the photo, the wind was blowing, there was temperature, you were either warm or cold or hot or damp, or there was smells, things were changing around you in time, in addition to having depth. And we're trying to represent everything that we feel in 2 dimensions. And when we compress it to 2 dimensions, we're losing something. It leaves a big emotional vacuum.
Okay.
And I feel free to go and fill in that emotional void with my creativity. And I typically do slightly more saturated than what you would think with my HDR, by doing some edge enhancement, stuff like that. Glamour glow, those are kind of my go-tos, but stuff like that. So I feel free to use that, and I feel no obligation to make it look pure.
Yeah.
I'm wide open to my interpretation, to my way of thinking.
I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd throw me right out as a photojournalist, but that's okay. It's not what I'm trying to shoot.
Photojournalists are changing now too, though. I mean, I remember when the world started going digital, it was like, oh, you cannot edit these, and they're editing them like crazy now, the photojournalists.
Yeah, there are guidelines for it. They have to be careful.
Yeah.
People have lost their jobs by getting too carried away with it.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. So what else do you have to add about our New England fall foliage photo outing trip?
Seafood's wonderful up in New England.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to New England this year.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say I've never been there because I've spent like one day in Boston, you know what I mean? But we're going to go to Acadia National Park.
Okay, nice.
This summer.
You cannot beat the seafood up in Bar Harbor area.
I love seafood.
If I say to my native New England, in the Bahada area.
Bahaba.
Yeah.
And then, because I'm speaking at the NECCC, New England Camera
Club Council Conference at Amherst, Massachusetts, UMass Amherst. I've been there 17 times, I think.
Wow.
Well, I used to live in New England, so it was right practically my backyard.
Well,
it was 2 hours
it's a
away.
really amazing conference, I heard. So
it is well-oiled machine. And I went there one time. They had 1,400 people there, and it just ran like clockwork.
Being a speaker, they've been. It's amazing how organized, and you have deadlines to get your paperwork in and write this up.
It's a well-oiled machine. They've done it over and over again. They keep doing it in the same location, so they know what to expect for facilities. They do it during the summer, so the school is empty, so they can do lodging on campus. So it's very, very affordable. Use the dining halls. I haven't been there. I've driven up from North Carolina to go there, but it's probably been 20 years. But even 20 years ago, you used to be able to go up there and spend the whole weekend for $225. Wow. Now, I would imagine now it's probably $500, but that's still a bargain considering that's conference, food, and lodging. Now, I'm guessing at the price. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But it's very affordable. It's a great bargain.
So I'm going to spend a little time in Cape Cod too, because I've never been there either. So. I'll be up in your old neck of the woods.
That's right. Cape in July, that could be pretty
crowded.
Intense.
Everybody said it's going to be very, very crowded. Well, I live in Florida. In the winter, we're very, very right now we're very crowded.
Well, that's true. There's essentially one or two routes the length of Cape Cod. Those are your two roads.
Yeah. So plan extra time.
Allow some time. Yeah, be patient. It's all beautiful. I really like out towards the tip of Cape Cod, out in the Provincetown area, Provincetown, P-Town area. Out in there, the crowds start thinning out because not everybody goes that far. It becomes a little more wild landscape out there.
Oh.
So there are places where you can drive a long time and not see a town.
Oh, cool.
So it's pretty out there.
I
was out there. I extended my fall foliage trip for a week on Cape Cod a couple of years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, fall, that might be a nice time. Well, we'll see if I like it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, where can everybody find you? What's your website?
It's just based on my name, danbeauvais.com.
And how do you spell that?
D-A-N. That part's easy. Okay. Then it's BEAUVAIS.com. I hope you have in program notes, I assume?
We are going to have everything in the show notes. And now, are you going to send us a few images that we can put on the Understand Photography site? Okay.
I'll be happy to do that.
Anything, we want to see those colors, those fall foliage.
I think we might be able to help you out with an image or two. Yeah.
But if they really want to see your pictures, go to your website.
Go to my website. There's a link right at the top. It goes to a gallery and flip through there. I'm also found on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Dan Beauvais. That's pretty much
You're easy to find.
Well, yeah, if you can spell my name, we're there.
If you can spell the name.
That's right. Yeah, it's a high friction name, unfortunately.
So thank you for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm so glad that you were
here
in Florida. It was awesome. So remember, audience, to check the show notes on understandphotography.com, and you'll see when you go to our website, it says the Understand Photography Show. So you'll see it. Click on that, and you can. We'll have a recap of what Dan and I talked about today, because I think we had a lot of good teaching in there, didn't we?
I'd like to think so. Yes.
And then tune in here on our Understand Photography Facebook page next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to watch the show live, or again, you can watch us on YouTube or listen to us on iTunes. I'm Peggy Farren. Thank you so much for watching the Understand Photography Show. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching the Understand Photography show. It would help us immensely if you would click like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.